there, creepy peeps. It's time to talk about movies again. I recently saw The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you guys out there. So, basically, The Woman in Black 2 takes place about 40 years after the first one. So we're in, like, World War II. We're in the midst of World War II. So we follow two ladies, Jean Hogue and our protagonist Eve Parkins, who are taking care of these children, bringing them out to the countryside away from the city of London, where everything is kind of a mess at the moment. There are a lot of air raids and stuff like that. So they take them out to the countryside to Eel Marsh House, which is where creepy stuff happens, as we know from the first one. The movie is directed by Tom Harper, and I hadn't heard that name before, so I looked him up, and I think if the information I found was correct from IMDb, this is his first like feature film that he's done. Everything else prior to this that I saw was like miniseries, an episode or two on some shows, and like TV movies. So I think this is his first like feature film. And our starring actors for Jean Hogue, who is kind of like the head lady, she seems to be Eve's boss in this movie, is played by Helen McCrory, who is in Penny Dreadful, which is kind of like the most recent popular thing she's been in, and Harry Potter. If you remember Narcissa Malfoy, Draco's mom, Helen McCrory. She doesn't have the cool two-tone dye job, though, in this movie, like she does in Harry Potter. We also have Eve Parkins, played by Phoebe Fox, who I also looked up and has not been in anything that I've seen. Again, a lot of like mini-series, TV shows kind of things. And we also have a very interesting love interest in Harry Burnshaw, or Burnshaw? Burnshaw? I think it's Burnshaw in the movie. Played by Jeremy Irvine, who again has not been in anything I've seen except for War Horse. I looked him up and he was in War Horse, and I think I've seen parts of that movie. Other than that, nothing I've really seen. No horror movies really. For any of them in particular. During the movie, I found myself comparing the sequel to the original, or not the original, the first one a lot. I don't know, I feel like the first one really scared me. I thought as far as kind of like vengeful spirits movies go, this one was really creative, and I really liked the set design, the lighting, the color scheme, the costumes. I really liked all of that. And I did really like that as well in the sequel, Woman in Black 2. I really love like 40s and 50s like hairstyles and clothing styles. So I was really digging the costumes and the makeup and the hair a lot. And I still really like the set. I love the set of Eel Marsh House. It's very cool. I need to look up if that's a real place, because as creepy as that is, that house is beautiful. Anyways, again, I really liked the color scheme in this movie as well. It had a lot of like dull kind of colors, and I think that kind of adds to like the foggy, misty marsh, and a lot of dull colors make it kind of seem really just like dated and old and abandoned and creepy, and I really like that. What I was kind of missing in the second one was, in the first one, like since it's the first movie, we're gonna have a lot of the protagonist discovering the story of our antagonist, or our villain, if you will. And I really found the backstory they gave to the Woman in Black really interesting and sad. I will say, while we're on this subject, if you haven't seen the first Woman in Black, I highly recommend it. Not only because in my opinion, I think it's a better movie of the two. I think it's better. But you're also going to get more of the Woman in Black's backstory. In the second one, the filmmakers, I feel like in these sequels, you kind of have the problem of since we're dealing with entirely new characters who know nothing about the woman in black, they still have to discover her story, basically. They still have to discover why she is haunting them, why she is terrorizing them. But you also have to balance that out with the fact that you have an audience who probably, for the most part, has seen the first one, and we already know the woman in black story. So in this second one, them discovering what the woman in black is all about, which I can't remember her name right now. I think it's Jeanette Humphreys, I think. Jeanette Humphreys is like the actual woman in black, not the actor's name. Sorry. Clarify that there. So them in the second one discovering her story or her backstory or her life story is really short. I think it's about like 2.5 scenes worth of information. So I would definitely recommend seeing the first one if you want that backstory, or looking it up because you'll kind of get more detail. And I think it's a really good and creative backstory. That being said, the first movie also is more, I don't know how to describe this. Okay, so in the second one, without giving anything away, our protagonist Eve Parkins has a lot of baggage, emotional baggage she's carrying with her. A lot of, past transgressions that she feels guilty for, or she feels sadness about. And you get that story, you learn about her. But I feel like when she gets to Eelmarsh House and all these scary things start happening, she takes it really personally. Like, she says it a few times, like, in reference to the woman in black. Eve says, she's doing this to punish me. She's doing this to punish me, to get back at me, or something like that. And in the first movie, I really didn't get that vibe off of the woman in black. Like, obviously, if you know her story, the reason why she takes the lives of children is in revenge for her sister and brother-in-law taking her child away from her because she was mentally unstable. And then in an accident in the marshes, the child drowns, not ever knowing who his real mother is. Then Jeanette Humphreys hangs herself and thus becomes the woman in black. Her spirit or energy or whatever you want to call it becomes the woman in black, and she takes the lives of children. Like, she doesn't particularly kill them. It's just, I guess, her influence or something makes them do these very dangerous and tragic things. So they're dying in like very tragic accidents, which aren't really accidents. I didn't really get the feeling that the woman in black was after Daniel Radcliffe's character in particular in the first movie, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, obviously what she's doing is for revenge, but it just seems like she goes after any child. Like, she's not going after specific people who maybe had something to do with her child's death or something like that. Just in the second one, they made it seem like, or maybe it was just me, I just felt like they were making her out to be somebody who's specifically targeting people. I don't know. And I don't know. I just didn't get that vibe. I really didn't like it. In the first one, it was all about the woman in black, it seemed like. Obviously, we had our protagonist in Daniel Radcliffe, and he had his own backstory and baggage and stuff like that. But I don't know. This one, the second one, seemed more like Eve Parkins' story. And while it was okay, I wanted to see more of the woman in black is all. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever. As far as the scariness of this movie goes, it's it's not really that scary. There are the very obvious jump scares. And I think the filmmakers attempted to create a lot of tense moments where you're kind of like on the edge of your seat, like the better scares, where they kind of where they create that tension and there's something scary going on and you're kind of just frozen in your seat, as opposed to a jump scare, which Personally, I don't really consider a scare. I don't consider that a true scare. Like, if something makes me jump a lot, I still might not think the movie is scary. Only because jump scares, like, obviously if you bring the sound down a whole lot, it's really quiet and you just have like a static shot, and then all of a sudden something jumps in front of the camera and makes a really loud noise, of course I'm gonna jump. It doesn't mean that I'm scared of it. It's just like, of course I'm gonna jump. You're you're all of a sudden playing something really loud in my ears and making something jump in front of my face. Like, I'm going to flinch a little bit. So there are the very obvious jump scares, and any tense moments that they tried to create weren't really scary. They were pretty predictable. I feel like they were taking a lot of the same scares from the first movie. Like, if you remember, you know, when somebody looks out of the window of Eel Marsh house and looks out at the marshes, something jumps in front of the window in front of them. We get the rocking chair that we're very familiar with, the creepy toys in the nursery that go off. I feel like a lot of the scares were kind of just ripped off from the first one. When they were setting up the scares, a lot of times in the back of my head I was like, I feel like I've seen this before, and then it would happen. I'm like, that's basically what they did in the first one. They're making the woman in black seem like a one-trick pony here. I guess overall, it wasn't a bad movie. I feel like I say this about a lot of movies. It wasn't bad. I've definitely seen worse. And I wouldn't recommend not seeing it. There's just no wow factor to it, really. Don't expect to be impressed by anything. In my opinion, personally. My personal advice. Yeah, just from my point of view, from what I saw and what I experienced in that movie, don't expect to be wowed. There's nothing special about it. Again, I would highly recommend watching the first one, not only because I personally think it's a better film, but you also get a lot of backstory on the woman in black, which is a very interesting backstory and very sad and tragic, and I really like it. Is that sad that I like that, or is that weird that I like tragic and sad stories? So those are my thoughts on The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. Title, by the way. Angel of Death. Come on, guys. Yeah, so if you have seen The Woman in Black 2, please let me know what you thought in the comments below. Also, if you've seen the first Woman in Black, you know, talk about that a little bit in the comments. I really enjoyed that movie. I think my puppy is getting into something. Hold on.